Hey guys, this week I wanted to change gears a little bit and discuss something that's a bit more personal to me. I've noticed in the comment section lots of you congratulating me on evading indoctrination from my university. And I think this is a very interesting recurring comment just because I think that, we used to consider universities kind of a battlefield for ideas. Nowadays, it's very much construed as a place where kids kind of enter in apolitical and then leave socialists. And this topic is feasted upon by older political commentators, but not so much recent grads, interestingly enough, especially conservative grads. I haven't heard that perspective so much on the internet, so I thought I would offer mine. I'm Sam, and this is Chicks and Balances. So why talk about this now? There are several reasons. One, the universities just fleeced all of their university students by providing minimal amount of services while charging everyone full price. I think this is an abomination. I do not understand how universities got away with this. And I think when we talk about what a university degree means, namely a bachelor's of arts, because that's my experience, I think it's pretty telling that they charge us the same amount for not the same experience, which further tells us that university is just about buying yourself a diploma rather than actually developing any sort of marketable skills. The main reason I want to talk about this is that the NDP had announced a couple months ago that they would, if they were to form government, which is unlikely, that they would introduce a debt relief program, and their long-term goal would be to introduce tuition-free higher education. The Liberals are always kind of one election agenda behind the NDP. So whatever the NDP, introduces now, it's very likely that the Liberals will, at one point adopt that position. And if we're having a conversation about free higher education, then let's talk about what happens in higher education from someone who just graduated. Anxieties around degrees, I think, are two-pronged. One, it's the anxiety that as a university graduate with a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy and Communications, I am completely unemployable. There's nothing in my philosophy of race class that was going to prepare me to be an administrative assistant. Secondly, it's the idea that while kids are meant to go to university to explore new ideas and be challenged, that not only are they having their worldview reinforced, but it's a worldview that cannot be questioned and that is shared amongst entire faculties. And this is a left-wing worldview, let's just be honest. People often think that professors are the ones kind of indoctrinating the kids, forcing you to believe whatever it is that they're telling you. That isn't true. In my experience, I found professors to be the ones egging you on to rebut. Professors loved it when students rose their hand and disagreed with them and were able to articulate a full rebuttal. There's this fallacy that professors are forcing students to be like them and to think like them. The interesting thing is that the students don't push back. My peers always kind of acquiesced. For the most part, everyone just kind of agreed with what the professor was saying. And it wasn't even my professors who I was, afraid of kind of like outing myself as a conservative. It was mostly my peers. I've been in so many situations where I'd be, meeting someone new and they would make a comment like, oh God, my brother just voted for Doug Ford. And just because I didn't want to get into it, I'd go along with it. I'd be like, oh yeah, it's so strange. I remember I was sitting next to someone in one of my first year classes and they asked me what I was doing after class, and I said, oh, I'm going to a conservative club meeting. And he made a joke that, oh, I didn't know that Hitler Youth was still meeting. And whatever, I'm not offended by this or really anything. But I just thought it was so interesting that everyone kind of assumed that you had the same ideas as them and the same values as them, despite university being the place where we're all supposed to, discover what we liked. And they just all like the same thing and believe in the same thing. And it just also happened to be what the teachers are teaching. It was really the students that created this totalitarian atmosphere that, you will be crushed if you, speak out of line. And I think it has to do with the way we were raised, with this mentality that, you're perfect the way you are, and that, well, if he asks you to change, well, then he doesn't deserve you. Just this idea that everyone else should mold around you. It's really just like an uncompromising way to live. And this really translates into the way that our teachers would interact with us. I always tell my friends this story because I can't believe it, but it's a perfect demonstration of how soft the professors are with us and gentle they are with us. I think I've only seen teachers clap back at a student twice. So I was in maybe I shouldn't say the class, I'll say the class, philosophy of environment class. And I had a great teacher, and we had this student in the class. She was very nice, but you could tell she was a bit like hippy-dippy. And we were talking about consciousness and whether animals were sentient. And so we were reading, a variety of essays on the matter, and we were having a class discussion. And she raised her hand. She goes, "Yeah, well, who's to say a blade of grass doesn't have as much consciousness as we do?" And so I started to laugh because what a stupid thing to say. And the teacher, nodded and said, I'm not willing to go that far. Mon Dieu. What? Every comment is perfect. Every comment should be taken seriously. I don't know, man. I thought that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard in my life. Even in the context of, kind of like the fruity conversation of whether animals have sentience. I thought that was stupid. So do universities indoctrinate us? Well, it's only because we're so primed for it. Yes, ideology has gone more left, but universities have always been a very left place. These people are paid by the government. They have ultimate job security. Their quality of lives are much higher than the average. Obviously, they're going to be left. They live in this like socialist utopia where the rest of us don't, and we don't understand. Well, it's because they kind of have it going on. And professors, for the most part, at least in the arts department, again, I've only had experiences in the arts department, but they exist in the world of ideas and theory. So obviously they're going to, push the limits of what we think is common sense or reasonable, and then teach the kids. But if us as a generation, if Gen Z, we're, capable of, having an original thought, well, maybe, we wouldn't be so susceptible to being indoctrinated. The critique is a bit too harsh because how can you expect young people to understand the real world when they've never been in it? So as someone who has never been in the real world, myself included, right? Well, I don't really understand how business works. I can understand, I can read an article, I can write an essay, I can make a video, but I don't really understand how it works. But that's because I've been shut out from the job market. Because I won't get hired with a simple high school degree. I think we should find it extremely troubling that our major political parties are thinking of putting more public funds. Again, universities are half funded by the government. So you have this group of people who believe that a more educated citizenry would make for a better politic. Sure, fine. But then these are the same people who are going to make university free, thereby making university mandatory, more mandatory than it already is, because most jobs require some sort of bachelor's. But now if you make it free, there's no reason for you not to go. And once in those institutions, again, it's very left. Leftist ideology is super imbued in our classes. And not everyone is equipped to push back against it. If you want a smarter citizenry, work on high school. High school was such a waste of time. I did not learn anything. It was so rudimentary, and I went to a pretty good public school. And high schools have been pretty much apolitical. I know it's state-run, so the morals of the state will naturally, trickle down to students. So if your qualm is that universities are churning out these, young Marxists, progressives, Well, then your response should be to maybe make high school more rigorous for two reasons. One, that once you graduate high school, you're actually equipped to do something. And two, that when they enter university, their brains aren't just Play-Doh ready to be molded by whatever the professor or whatever the reading is. And ultimately, institutions of education are meant to socialize us. When you're in elementary school, you get every impulse beaten out of you, not literally, but sometimes literally. They form you into what the state thinks a good little child should be. But that doesn't stop in elementary school, and it goes on to high school, where you gain no knowledge, but maybe only an eating disorder. And then you go to university, and you're completely fresh and neutral and impressionable because you didn't learn anything in high school, let alone any critical thinking skills. And so no wonder everybody, first of all, conforms, thinking that they're not conforming, which is the most hilarious thing about the left, is that all these leftists think that they're somehow counterculture, even though the culture is in their corner. And listen, it's a free country. If you want to pursue academia and literature, by all means. But it should not be publicly funded. So what can we do to change this? Well, this starts with employers, obviously. Stop requiring BAs for shit. Stop. Especially for non-technical jobs. Thanks so much for watching. Before I go, I just wanted to ask you guys some questions. I'm still, becoming comfortable or less uncomfortable with talking to a camera by myself in my bedroom. And I was wondering what kind of format you guys have been liking. Do you kind of like the more, policy-driven content that is, extensively researched and more rehearsed? Or do you prefer kind of more casual talks like this one? So any feedback you guys would be able to offer, I would be very appreciative. This is such a weird thing to do and get accustomed to. Yeah, and as I get more comfortable, I want to try new things, new styles. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. I do really appreciate it. And I can't wait to get back into it with you guys next Wednesday. Thanks for watching. Oops, I totally forgot to mention the ways that you guys can support us. If you want to support the work that we do here at the Post Millennial and make sure that we can continue to bring you the perspectives that are often overlooked and ignored by the mainstream, please, please, please go to the links below where you can follow our mailing list, subscribe, and donate. Thanks a lot.